Hello, St. Louis. I am here to read you a story called Jake the Philharmonic Dog. And I'm realizing now that it's backwards, but the pictures will still be great. So, all right. I love this story. Jake the Philharmonic Dog by Karen Le Frak. Illustrations by Marcin Baranski. All right. Ruff, 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 ruff. Richie thought the small black dog sounded like he was singing. One look at the little fellow swishing his tail back and forth was enough for Richie to know this was the perfect dog for him. Jake and Richie did a lot of things together. Jake loved going to the park with Richie to play fetch. Tweet, 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 tweet. As birds chirped in a nest high above, Jake threw his head back and answered, woof, 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 woof. Jake and Richie also loved long car rides. Honk, 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 honk. Woof, 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 honk, woof. Jake answered each honking car. His tail moved back and forth, like the windshield wipers. But there was one sound that Jake didn't like. Thunder. The first time the sky grew black and lightning flashed across it, followed by a boom. Jake's ears flattened. He went around and around in circles, his tail between his legs. Hey, pal, do you want to play fetch? Richie threw a rolled up newspaper, but Jake didn't notice. Jake, want a biscuit, boy? Richie rattled the box of special treats, but Jake just whimpered. Richie didn't know what to do. Music usually helped him think, so he turned on a CD player. The sound of violins streamed through the air. Suddenly, Jake cocked his head and started thumping his tail, back and forth, back and forth. There you go. That's better, isn't it? Said Richie, gently scratching Jake behind the ears. Who knew you liked music so much? You know what? I'm going to take you to work with me tomorrow. And they shook on it, hand and paw. See how cute. I wonder where Richie works. What do you think? The next day, Richie and Jake drove down the grand concert hall. Jake lifted his ears as he entered the backstage area. So many new sounds, so many new scents. His eyes swiveled as a sea of legs weaved around him. Jake looked proudly at Richie as he set up chairs and music stands on the stage, putting sheets of music on each one. Do you have an idea of where Richie works now? The musicians took the stage and they all found their seats. Suddenly, someone was kneeling by Jake, giving him the neck rub of his life. Jake, this is Glenn, said Richie. He's the concert master. He'll run the rehearsal until the conductor arrives. Oh, look. Tweet, tweet. The bird song seemed to fill the air. Jake threw back his head. Woof, woof, woof. But just as quickly as it had begun, the bird melody stopped. The only sound now was Richie's laughter. Jake, Richie said. There aren't any birds in here, boy. That's the flute players warming up. They're part of the woodwind section of the orchestra. Look, we have an oboe, a clarinet, some flutes, and a bassoon. You might be able to hear my dog in the background. He's not happy. He's outside. All at once, Jake heard the loudest noise. Honk, woof, honk, woof. Look, it reminds him of something. The musicians all looked down. Jake, Richie patted him on the head. That's not a car horn. That's a French horn. See? The brass instruments are warming up now. Remember, brass instruments are instruments that we buzz into. Which ones do you see here? I see a trumpet, a tuba, a French horn, and a trombone. I love the brass instruments. Uh-oh. Richie knew what was coming next, but before he could say a word, the drum roll started. Quiet at first, then swelling louder and louder, followed by crash, boom. Uh-oh. Jake whimpered. Everyone in the orchestra froze and watched wide-eyed as Jake turned quick circles off stage, his tail between his legs. Jake, it's not Thunder Boy, it's not. It's just the percussion section, Richie called out, but Jake didn't stop running in circles. Do you remember what percussion instruments are? We talked about that in class, didn't we, huh? Can you tell me? If you said that percussion instruments are instruments that we hit or shake to make a sound, you're right. Glenn, quick! Have the string section play something, anything! Glenn signaled to the musicians, and the strings began to play. Oh, look. Look at those string instruments. Let's pick them out here. We have a violin, a viola, a cello, and a bass. As soon as he heard the soothing sounds of violins, Jake sat straight up and listened. His tail now wagged back and forth, back and forth. Good boy, Jake. The string section is your favorite, isn't it, pal? Richie said, scratching Jake behind the ears. Do you have a dog that you scratch behind the ears? As Glenn stepped to the podium, Richie said, listen to how all these instruments sound together when they play in the orchestra. Jake cocked his head as Glenn began to wave his arms at the orchestra. Why was he trying to shoo them away? Jake wondered. But then the most wonderful sound filled the air as the whole orchestra played together. Even Jake knew to keep quiet. Look at that. Richie put a cushion on the wings so Jake could have his own special place to sit while the musicians played. As the rehearsal was going well, Richie said, come on, buddy, let's go for a walk in the park before the concert. Do you know what the wings are of a stage? It's the area that's just off to the side, on either side. Usually the audience cannot see in the wings. By the time they returned to the hall, Jake was kind of sleepy. I'll be back in a minute, boy. I just need to take care of a few things. Uh-oh, what's Jake doing? Do you see? Jake wandered lazily across the empty stage, waiting for Richie. Sniffing a chair here, a music stand there. When he reached the podium, that's where the conductor stands, Jake saw something that perked him up a bit. A stick! Jake took it and wandered off the stage to find Richie so they could play fetch. Is that really a stick? What do you think? But there was Jake's plump new cushion, and he couldn't resist it. He yawned. The stick fell from his mouth and rolled behind the cushion. Then Jake curled up and took a nap. Uh-oh. The sound of the orchestra warming up woke Jake a short time later. As he stretched, someone he'd never seen before walked onto the stage. The audience clapped, and the musicians picked up their instruments. The man went to the podium and bowed to the audience. Everyone was quiet. Do you know what the name of that person's job is? What does he do? But then the man began to search the podium, looking for something. What's he looking for? His baton, right? Jake took it thinking it was a stick. Oh no, said Richie, the baton. I know I put it out there before we went to the park. What has happened to it? Uh-oh. Jake watched as everyone began to fidget. The orchestra and the audience. He took the opportunity to meet the new person and try to start a game of fetch. Jake nosed behind the cushion, got a stick, and trotted out onto the stage before Richie realized what was happening. Uh-oh. The audience seems to really like it, though. Bravo! Bravo! The audience burst into wild applause upon seeing Jake with the baton in his mouth. The conductor raised an eyebrow at his surprised guest. Then he turned, bowed to the little dog, and took the baton from his mouth. The audience rose to their feet and cheered. Jake was so happy that his tail began to wag back and forth, back and forth. The conductor watched, then raised the baton and followed Jake's beat. He turned to the orchestra to start the music. The audience quickly took their seats. Jake scurried off to the wings to take his, and Jake's first official concert began. From then on, Jake came to work with Richie every day. After all, the principal's stage paw had to bring the conductor his baton at the start of each performance. And guess what? This story, Jake the Philharmonic Dog, is a true story. Pretty cool. All right, thanks for joining me for story time today.